If non-jury diplock trials in the north of Ireland are set to go, then why the hell would you defend non-jury trials in the south? Sinn Fein representatives, including people like Theresa Ferris, have condemned their change of stance on the Special Criminal Court, which is a juryless court which denies people their civil liberties. Sinn Fein are moving to a position of accepting the very mechanisms used to repress the Republican movement for generations. Hunger striker Tommy McKerney has described this process as a process of triangulation, which is what Tony Blair called moving Labour to the right in order to court middle class voters. There were two repressive states built on this island after the treaty was signed, both of them designed to hold working class people down. In the north there was an orange sectarian state, a monstrous regime which denied civil rights to the majority. But the same goes for the southern state. After the treaty they built a clerical repressive state to hold the people down. And again, at no point has that state been dismantled. Yeah, the church might not have as much influence as it used to. I mean, they've still got the schools and hospitals. But someone like Drew Harris, the corrupt cop who covered for the loyalist Glenanne gang, running the Gardaí, shows the type of people that populate the Irish state machine. And the Special Criminal Court was not introduced to deal with gangland or criminals. In August 1939, De Valera brought it in to deal with opposition movements and the IRA. It was part and parcel of the Offences Against the State Act, which was just one in a long run of repressive legislation brought in the Irish state. When the Special Criminal Court was first set up, this non-jury trial was run by 5 army officers. Now today it's run by 3 judges. But it's still an elite court that denies people their human rights. And if you think about it, the Offences Against the State Act was updated in 1972. But what was going on in 1972? If you think about it, this is in the wake of Bloody Sunday, when the people of the north, the Catholic people in the north, mainly in working class communities, had mobilised for civil rights and had met with bloody repression at the hands of both the Unionist state and the armed forces of Britain. So it was in the wake of Bloody Sunday that the Irish state mouthed rhetoric about supporting the people of the north, while at the same time strengthening the repressive apparatus of their own state, because they wanted to make sure that the civil rights movement in the north didn't spill over into solidarity strikes and protest movements in the south. The 1972 Offences Against the State Act could see you jailed on the word of a Garda sergeant. Now, we've all seen so many cases of Garda corruption, from the murder of Terence Wheelock in Store Street Station to the smearing of Maurice McCabe, to know that the word of a Garda sergeant isn't worth very much. And then throughout the 1970s, Special Branch, for example, acted as a heavy gang. They just went round battering people whenever they felt like it. I mean, the Special Criminal Court removes people's human rights. And if you're sent to what's called a non-scheduled trial, you have no right to appeal. In fact, they can withhold evidence from your defence lawyer if they say that the information is sensitive. So the real reason for a juryless trial is not to fight crime or the security of the state. In actual fact, it's to secure a conviction. Without a jury, without presenting evidence to your defence lawyer, the state can make sure that they send you away. And it's not just socialists like myself who've condemned the Special Criminal Court. It's condemned by the UN, the Irish Council of Civil Liberties and Amnesty International. Now, Fine Gael will say the court only deals with illegal organisations, but they get to declare who is defined as an illegal organisation. And Sinn Fein representatives have been on Twitter and other social media platforms saying they want a human rights compliant non-jury court. But there's a contradiction. A non-jury court is against human rights, so you can't have a human rights compliant court that's against human rights. It's a contradiction in terms, you can't do it. Last year, Sinn Fein met with Martin Fraser, who's the top civil servant running the Irish state behind the scenes. Whenever there's an election, Your manifesto has to be translated into a programme for government by meeting with these top civil servants. There's so many filters by which the rich make sure that they hold on to their rule and that the golden circle doesn't lose control of the Irish state. And Sinn Féin's move to the right on the criminal court, saying that businesses have nothing to fear from a Sinn Féin government, saying that they would not nationalise vulture funds, they are signalling that they will leave that repressive state intact before they even get into power, never mind when they're actually in power. Obviously the socialist left should help get rid of Fianna Fáil and get rid of Fine Gael and give Ireland its first left government. They should vote for Mary Lou for Taoiseach because that's what the majority of people want. But you wouldn't want to be trapped in that government, because if Sinn Féin moved to the right, the socialist left would be destroyed and working class people would be demoralised. So isn't the best option to vote for Mary Lou for Taoiseach, to use your vote to put in a left government, but not to take ministerial seats? Because that way you can hold the Sinn Féin leadership to account. You can stand with Sinn Féin members, with working class people who want Sinn Féin to stay on the left, and make sure that they do that. Make sure that they deliver. That's the real job of the socialist left, to stand up for working class people, to make sure the interests of working class people are defended. In reality, Sinn Féin don't want the situation where they're dependent on the votes of the far left to form a government anyway. They'd rather go in with Fianna Fáil, and that's what this move to the right is about. That's why we need to mobilise on the streets on issues like housing and every other issue that affects working class people. Because otherwise the Sinn Féin leadership, if faced with a passive working class, will just give us Micheál Martin return to power in the next government. And that's not the change we want.